thing, and then I
Yeah, then we'll look
looked
for.
on Amazon. I ended up finding one on Amazon.
I call the URA board meeting to order at 6 p.m. You would all, I'm sorry, you stand by. I almost got it. Lori, can you call,
Well,
no, sorry, you're,
Yeah,
I was on the right track,
You
yeah.
were.
Yes, thank you, Council, or Commissioner. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic.
All right. Now, Lori, let's do the roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Dobrow,
Present.
Commissioner Page, Commissioner Hagedorn. Here. Commissioner Papen.
Present.
Commissioner Reddy. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. All right. Next, I will entertain a motion on approval of the agenda and the minutes for October 20. Yes. Anybody?
I move to approve the minutes from October 20th, 2025.
A second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes for October 20 to 25, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to approve the special session agenda, Lori?
No, it's usually combined as the consent agenda and they, unless you, yeah, it can be all done. Cause I went back to that, cause you guys have added some stuff to
Yeah.
agendas recently. And so,
Sorry about that.
no, it's fine. That's perfectly normal and but we just hadn't done it for a while, so I went back to making it the consent agenda, so.
Perfect. All right, do we have any public comment?
None that I got before the meeting.
All right. So, we will move to unfinished business, item 7A. URA plan extension and update discussion, and for that, I will turn you over to our executive director, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Chair Dumbrell. Yes. Board meeting. Thank you. So I just wanted to update you on where things are with that. So there are two items that that are going to be brought before the URA board regarding updating the urban renewal plan over the next few months. Number one, more immediately, in January, we will come before you. Well, in December, I'll come before you with just kind of the specific plan. But we're going to work with the consultant, Elaine Howard, on what amounts to removal of the 20-year end, the current 20-year end of the sunset date of the urban renewal plan, that our current sunset date after 20 years of the plan being active since 2007, fiscal year FY07, June 30th of this year, or excuse me, of next year of 2026 is the current 20-year sunset date for the plan. Now, after we visited with the city attorney and Elaine, and we went over everything, it does look like it will take about at most a month-long process and a resolution brought to you all for consideration to remove from the existing plan, the 2000 adopted. It will remove, there's a clause in there that's not typical of urban renewal plans, even at the time and currently now. There was a 20-year sunset date in the plan. Those happened in hearing from Elaine, going all the way back then. They weren't super typical back in the day, and they aren't super typical now, certainly. So the resolution, the process that leads up to a resolution for your consideration in January, maybe early February, depending, is basically just to strike that language from the existing plan that's adopted, that's actively our plan. The process she'll go through will involve speaking with a variety of our partner service providers, they like to know if we're going to do anything with our plan that might involve more years of them not getting tax revenue. It is not required by law that we do that, but we do. One of our major service provider partners also happens to be one of the agencies that has been the most, in the most partnery way possible, skeptical of, you know, just kind of the massive powers that urban renewal plans and districts used to have, and they've kind of been active on the process of working with cities to kind of moderate that over time. That is a fair way to put it. So the consultant's gonna, and we'll visit with all those agencies and just kind of talk to them. This is what we're planning. This is what we've done with the fund so far. This is what is still hasn't been done. There's a lot still to do in the city. And the city's gonna move forward with 20 more years of urban renewal. And so just to kind of get everybody on board with the idea of it. So that when we bring a resolution to you all to strike the sunset language, you all know that there's been a process that involved everybody, and everybody's aware, on board, has had their say, that sort of thing. That's the first step. Any questions about that?
How firm are we on the time frame for this? I've been the 2 months probably to take.
The timeframe's pretty certain. Frankly, after talking with Elaine and based on her schedule, it shouldn't take, it'll take about 4 weeks. Most of the time frame involved is just scheduling all the meetings with the different partners whose incremental property tax revenue we're receiving. In the urban renewal agency receives. So it's really just all those meetings over the course of a few weeks. And then she drafts a resolution and staff report, all that, and we bring it before you. But that's the time consuming part.
Have those meetings been scheduled?
We don't have a contract with her yet. Once we do, yeah. Then we will, and she'll schedule all those out in advance.
Holidays are coming up, so.
Yes, that's correct. So she'll be here on December 1st. So the very first thing is she'll come in on the 1st and she'll do a presentation. She'll do her URA tax increment finance 101 presentation, and it will be very specific to the city of North Plains. Its existing plan, its maximum indebtedness, I mean, all that indebtedness, all those things. She'll come in and talk about all that and just kind of give her recommendations, including talking about the extension date being extended, or that language being stricken from the existing plan document.
One more follow-up question.
Uh-huh.
Since she's pretty pivotal in this process,
Mhm.
what's up us from us under contract already, so she doesn't contract somebody else and have her time used up?
She basically, she's really kind of the only one that does this now, and we're on her calendar. I mean, it's been, she's already visited with the city attorney. Emily's already given her kind of a review of opinion on what will work in terms of, will a single resolution, striking language in the existing plan, extend the sunset date. That's all been confirmed. So she's sort of already been doing advanced work for us. Yeah, so we should be fine. So there's that. So the plan extension will be done in January. And then after that, the second recommendation she has, and she'll talk more about that, is that then the existing plan that you have, that the Urban Renewal District has dating back to 2006, 2007, basically a brand new plan be done. A lot has changed. Many things that were once legal with urban renewal dollars are no longer. Different processes and different things have certainly changed over time. And so, and then just new projects that need to be considered and put into a new plan.
So will we need to do a separate strategic plan for the URA, or is this part of that?
It will need to be separate. Yeah, so what we'll do though, it's a great question. The urban renewal plan update will be a community involvement oriented thing. It will not be a cheap effort. The budget that you adopted for the URA for 25-27 included a budget for professional services for all of these things of about $250,000. I'm not anticipating it's going to cost all that. There are other things we hire professional services firms to help us with.
Sure.
But that should cover it, but it'll take a few months and work.
Okay, and so once we get the extension done, that's when you're thinking we'll target the URA strategic plan.
Immediately after, yeah, we wanna get, yeah, we just wanna start by removing impediment. Because you know, the striking the sunset date simply means we can continue using the plan we already have. It's old, but we continue to use it to authorize us to do things well past well past June 30th, 2026. But we don't know when we'll have that update done, so it just enables us
that
to
makes
move
sense.
forward, yeah.
Thanks.
And that will be a sizable project, so we'll competitively bid that. This is not something where I have told or Elaine understands or she knows how public bidding works.
Yeah.
It's a competitive bid thing, so.
Yeah.
So we'll see who bids on
And so will that go through the RFI, RFP process? Okay.
it. It certainly will, yes.
Sure, I can hardly wait. Always on the other end of those and they're never fun.
Yeah, well, we'll have we'll have a scoring, you'll be involved in a scoring process, all that fun stuff, yes. So that'll be in late winter, early spring when we
Okay.
put all that out, yeah. Exactly. What we'll probably do is, what I would like to do is it wouldn't be expensive to add a scoping exercise with her to help us kind of put into an RFP exactly what we want in an update, or what people to propose to do in an update based on kind of the work she had done for us up till then.
She has the experience, so it might be wise to get her involved, to at least get the RFP correct.
Yeah.
They'll save time in the back.
Yes, I will say so December 31st, she is retiring from consulting as a primary consultant. So in the past, if there was a plan update, like if there was a big plan update project, she would lead a team and primarily be the primary contractor with an agency as Elaine Howard Consulting, and then she would have sub-consultants who might do outreach, public meetings or design work, that sort of thing. She will no longer do that. What she will do is she plans to team with other firms she has traditionally teamed with, but she will not be in the foreground. It'll be more pure consulting for her. So, whatever we end up doing, whatever proposal or whatever RFP we put out there to get interest, she'll probably be part of a team bidding on her.
What does RFI and RFP?
Oh, sorry, my mistake. RFI is a request for information. It's just a government process we go through, and then RFP is a request for proposal.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll try not to use acronyms. I keep forgetting. It's a bad habit.
They're kind of unavoidable. They're kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, it only gonna be 2 years to learn them all, so don't feel bad.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm asking for the public too.
Yeah, no, it's a great clarification,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
no, that's
Yeah.
good call.
Rest in peace.
So, December 1st, Elaine will be here and we'll just kind of give the rundown on everything, in her presentation, and then we'll just kind of move from there. She will be away on winter away time most of December, but she'll be back in early January, and that's when we'll kick things off. And that's it as far as that part of the agenda, I would say.
Any other questions, from council or commission?
Right here.
Okay,
All right.
so let's move on to item B, incentive programs.
Very good. I don't want to spend too much time on here, but what I wanted to do is, it's more than clear, and we're at a point where we need to figure out some new programs for the URA, to potentially grant monies to property owners or businesses who would like to do something new or different with their property, for a new business or different type of business, that sort of thing, or certainly with somebody who might want to come to town and build something new in the urban renewal district. And again, so in the agenda packet, what we put in there was just the program description and then the application for the new food and beverage business tenant improvement grant program that we've had in place for 2, maybe 3 years, I think just 2 years.
It's like two.
Yeah, and if you had a chance to look at it, hopefully you did, what you'll see is that there's actually a lot there. We have a lot of, requirements in the, a lot of different specific things that qualify the business to apply, what the city's been looking for. And then a bunch of information that the applicant has to provide as part of, applying for a grant. The grant has to be put into improvements put in place in the building. It's not for operating expenses. It's for, physical taxable assessed value, basically. Tenant improvements being put into a space to operate a restaurant business in this case. And then even then, it's not for, just any tenant improvement costs. It's actually, to help out with extraordinary tenant improvement costs specific to restaurants. I mean, if you open an office, you can, if you open an office in a retail space, you can kind of put up a bunch of, desks and various things and put very little in terms of, walls and finished space and that sort of thing inside your space because it's a bunch of desks. But when a restaurant moves in, of course, it has, a kitchen and a lot of improvements that are specific to that are very costly, ventilation and walk-in freezer, walk-in cooler, to name just a few. And those things are far more expensive than typical tenant improvements for commercial space. So the grant helps with those costs, but really kind of the extraordinary ones. So it's not super easy and just on anything that public money is spent on. It's really kind of meant to be done in a targeted way. And then after they fill out all their application information, they have to give bids on what the costs are going to be and why they're extraordinary. The property owner has to sign a form, kind of agreeing to participate and declaring things. And then after all is said and done, after staff reviews this, it goes to the EDC for them to interview the business, and ask them questions. And the EDC has asked rather pointed questions of businesses who've applied, to kind of get a sense, how serious are you? Do you have a plan to get through the winter? How do you plan to advertise? How do you plan to, what are you banking on? How are you thinking about, opening in this new small but growing city? Those sorts of things. And, so there's a very real process. So the main thing here is, we'd like to move forward with you in figuring out some new programs. But when we do them, we want to be very targeted and make the process, rigorous because it is public money. And we want to make sure, the thing to remember is, I kind of said it before, when we use urban renewal dollars, we're using dollars that other agencies willingly gave up with the condition that we would encourage investment that would result in more tax revenue eventually for those other agencies, including ourselves. So we're using their money. And so we want to be very careful about that. So when we come up with new programs, we'll want to be rigorous, but we certainly want to branch out and do different things, help different types of businesses. So any questions about the existing program and how it's worked and does anything come to mind about it? About how to, indicative of how to think about other programs or how it's worked, anything? Yeah.
I don't know how much they know about the guy from Banks, but I
Sure, my phone.
do they know about?
Oh, I was just gonna say,
So I was saying, take his recommendations before we, fly off, take some of these recommendations, who've looked at this without bias.
yeah, no, thank you, Commissioner Rennie, sorry. That's a great point. So, John Lagarza, who is a consultant with Healthy Sustainable Communities, I think, it's a consulting firm. He operates and he and some employees and they do strategy work for, retail development strategies for cities. That's what they recently did for the city of Banks. They've been doing some work specifically in assistance of their urban renewal district. And I did have him, he sent me I haven't gotten back to him yet, but he did send me a scope of work. But during this process, before we do the urban renewal plan update, but after we do the sunset date, I would like to kick off, I'll bring him in to visit with you all and kind of talk about what he does. But I had him scope a project where he basically identifies the types of businesses and opportunities that this body should consider for new types of incentive programs, so that we're not just shooting whatever, we're not shooting in the dark. He at least kind of comes to us and says, these are various ways to look at the different industries or sectors that probably would make sense to branch out into new programs. So having said that, it's later on the agenda, but I have some things I'll get into the sisters and stuff conversation that might be indicative of how we might think about a new program. And the same thing of the Rogue. I'll be having a meeting with them to kind of talk about what challenges they have with their building and how what might be worth considering for URA participation assistance with them too. But again, we want to just make sure we're doing it the right way.
How does the landlords work with the applicant? Because applicants have needs that they need within the building. How are the landlords approaching this?
So the landlords basically have to sign an agreement that they're agreeing to participate with the program along with the business owner. Because what happens is the property owner continues to have the tenant improvements that have been put in place by the business even after it's gone. I mean, one way to look at the tenant, the food service program is, the intent of it was, let's have more restaurants in North Plains as a result of, the COVID shutdown and people very worried about where their income was coming from and when anything was going to open up, and all of a sudden being forced to go distances for things and worried about it all the time. And the intent was to have more restaurants in town as a result. And so what we've done with the grants is we've actually bought improvements that even if we want the new businesses to be successful, but even if they're not, if they have to close, the urban renewal district has put in place tenant improvements for the space to be used by another restaurant in the future. It's meant to kind of, to buy that instead of having to do it all over again. That's what. So the property owner has to participate in terms of, agreeing to the terms of the grant being given to the business. Really, it goes to the property owner because the money's being put in place inside their building.
Which begs the next question is, the property owner owns like a strip mall. And they get a bunch of restaurants in there. And will not make it for more than a year, maybe a year and a half.
Mhm.
Now that owner has some better equipment to rent out to the next people on there.
Yeah.
Are we unduly enriching one person? And with 3 businesses that are in the same area?
I think that's kind of a two-sided coin. I think on one hand, to give more than one grant, even, give 2 or 3 grants even, for businesses to go into the same property owner's buildings. It raises that question. That's happened. We've had a property owner who built the first building, and we helped 2 businesses establish themselves, sign leases by being able to have the tenant improvements assistance from the city. And then in the second building, one business got a grant because the city really didn't kind of have a sit-down coffee shop. I guess on one side, yes, one property owner has gotten 3 different grants in 2 different buildings. So one property owner has benefited from having space invested in. So yes, that's true. But at the same time, nobody else is coming to us looking to build something and have businesses move in. And we're a small town. So I mean, if this were a bigger city and we kept working with only one property owner, I think we'd probably have an issue. But we haven't had a lot of interest, we have really had no interest from anybody, except for one property owner for at least the first 2 years of the program.
Is it fair to say that those that did meet the objective of raising the taxable property value, or the value, taxable value of the property?
Yes, and I would go one further. So when the property owner we're speaking of came to us before he built the building, the first one, you know, he showed me his pro forma. And, you know, let's put it this way, building the first building was a project of passion to do it. Because, you know, the financials and whoever his business partners were and whoever his lender was, you know, it was work to get there. And the two grants that the two businesses got to move in, effectively by being able to get those two in and then securing a few more businesses to take the rest of that space, it made it easier for him to get more equity investment and lending for the second building because they created a successful project. So there was what's called a halo effect of that first building. So I think for North Plains with a program out, fresh program out of the box, it's kind of, at least for right there, it's kind of accomplished what it was intended to do. And if we do lose some of these businesses, and hopefully we don't, anybody who wants to open up a new, different type of restaurant that talks to the property owner and says, I'd love to move in here, what's the rent? He can start from a place of having the improvements in place and not having to deal with extraordinary costs for that tenant. So it pays dividends over time.
Because normally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe on a triple net, the property owner is responsible for tenant improvement. Like usually they'll credit back tenant improvements, if I remember right, won't they?
Yeah, they'll amortize the tenant improvements in the rent,
Right.
but then the tenant is responsible for everything else, pretty much. But that's exactly right, and that's why this program was structured that way, because
Makes sense.
the property owner amortizes certain improvements in the rent, but there's the very expensive kitchen related ones or restaurant related ones we helped with, kind of get it over the hump.
So I think, well, I'll just speak for myself. I think it would be interesting to hear from John, because I think narrowing the scope before we try to take this thing on, that's just my opinion, would be helpful. If he could give us like some guardrails, maybe some ideas, because I definitely want to do more. This is not my specific area of expertise, so I don't want to step into something. I'd rather have a professional. That's just my opinion.
As much as we want to help businesses in North Plains, which we really do, we also want to be good guardians of a limited asset that somebody else gave us. So we kind of have to do a good job of this.
Yeah.
Spending most of the money.
Yeah. I like that.
I don't think any of you guys' microphones are on. If they are,
Bueller, Voodoo Economics.
I can hear you a little bit if that helps online. Would now be a good time for me just to jump in and ask a question?
Please.
Okay, thank you. This is Commissioner Papin. Bill, I just had a question, and I apologize if I missed this somewhere, but is there any
we're losing you.
We're losing you, Commissioner Papin.
Wow.
I don't know if you can hear us, tell her.
Yeah.
tenant, let's say they,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, you're really cutting out.
can you hear me now?
At this moment, yes.
Perfect. Okay. My question is, Bill, is there any safeguard in place for businesses that maybe mismanage their funds and they go out of business prematurely? Because I'm just curious what other jurisdictions do to prevent, wasting money essentially for businesses that go out.
Commissioner Maven, thank you for the question. So, as far as the grant, how the grant works, I guess that'll be the first part of my answer, and that is that once the grant is awarded, it's sort of like our EPA Brownfields grant. They, with the property owner, have to put improvements in place. And then they come to us with all of their receipts for reimbursement. And then we check all the receipts to make sure that they're qualifying expenses. And then we cut a check for whatever the expenses were that they have receipts for. And I don't know that we've written a check for a full $50,000. I think we've had receipts turned in that added up to close, but like we cut a check for what they bring receipts in for. So they've been very, very easily rounded up to $50,000 each time. But if their receipts come in showing, contractor costs of $48,322.14, if that's what the receipts say, that's what we reimburse for. And then what you don't have here, this is all the information in the packet, is the application and the program description in the application. But we have a legally binding agreement that you don't have in front of you, that the applicant and the property owner have to sign, that guarantee that they follow the procedures. And there's no guarantees in the agreement, and there can't be, that the business will, you promise to survive for 3 years or something. That's something that just gets tossed to the wind. We don't know how they're going to do. But we have agreement in there binding them to, we're reimbursing expenses that qualify, and you have to turn all of this in, and you have to agree to, not take the improvements out and change your business plan and all that fun stuff. You have to keep the improvements in place. So at the end of the day, it really boils down to if the business survives or doesn't, it's how they themselves manage the business. But we have assurances that the improvements are put in the way. We know the improvements were put in the way they are supposed. We inspect the space before they start construction. When they're done, we take a look. We get the receipts, we reimburse based on the receipts, and they sign an agreement to keep the improvements in place, and the owner does too, among other things. So it's set up pretty similarly in terms of an agreement and safeguards the way Beaverton and Hillsborough have done theirs. And we haven't had any problems so far with 3 anyway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor or Commissioner Redding?
To follow up, to follow up with Trista's, instead of the failure part, setting them up when they sign up for the grant, and maybe we're working with the EDC on this and getting like a Dave Ramsey type program going for our local businesses to understand the climate they're coming into and things like that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Redding. Thank you. Yes. I think what we're going to discuss at the EDC is when we've done these grant programs, it's interview them, recommend approval of the grant or not, and then staff takes care of it from there, and we work with the business. But yes, there's room for, and I think the EDC would be interested in, and we'll talk about it. How can the EDC bring resources to bear, or point to resources, or coordinate with somebody who can work with them as business owners, if they aren't already working with, small business center at PCC or what have you. There could be a checklist that, you are working with these entities, or if you're not, can we put you in touch with? So that hasn't been done before with previous grants. But I think they would, we'll talk about it, and I'm willing to bet they would support that, just because it assures that they at least are given even more tools to try to last longer, sort of thing.
So, the only thing I really think of to address the possibility that business is going out of business too early would be have like a vesting schedule in there. Like the first year you go out of business, you owe back this much money and you decrease the amount as it goes. I kind of don't want us to go down that route. I think that's, I don't know. I think that route of penalizing business for going out of business is not what something we actually want to do. So I think we should probably avoid that.
So I think that was kind of the crux of what I was asking is. As long as they meet the requirement of improving the property tax, the base property tax over time. We'll recoup the money, it's just. It stinks to lose a business, but it's the risk that we take as a URA board, it'd be my interpretation.
I thank you, Chair Dunn Brown and Commissioner Page. I would agree. I mean, we require that the improvements stay in place so that it's even less expensive in the future should somebody move in after. I mean, wouldn't it be great to get a Thai restaurant or something we don't have move in, or something, or an Indian restaurant or something that we don't have? That there's space already there with all the improvements in place, the kitchen's already there. Again, we don't want anybody to not succeed here, but if they don't succeed, the improvements are kept and a business can move in potentially cheaper later as a result of that. But yeah, I would agree, if you look at it as the URA investing in creating taxable assessed value, making it easier for business to deal with extremely high upfront costs, and the improvements stay in place, so you're kind of buying long-term operating space for different types of businesses, in this case, restaurants. Those are pretty good things, really, for the city. And then if we're successful, we aren't doing a bunch of grants, but rather we're creating places that we've helped get some businesses in, and then that activity makes it more appealing to maybe do other things, and we don't have to help those things.
Makes sense. Commissioner Redding, do you have a second question, I think?
No.
Oh,
Bill
sorry.
keeps chewing the fly to me, so.
Oh, sorry.
Ready now for.
No, and I agree with.
over here right now.
Instead of, I think setting them up for success in the beginning with the
No, I
grant
like that.
is, I mean, that's a positive.
So my suggestion would be maybe that's something, as we go through this, if we have EDC, as Bill mentioned, weigh in on, like. Do you have a business coach, or whatever you call it, whatever the thing is, and then if not, here's some that we work with. We strongly recommend that you do this because it will make you more successful statistically. No, I like that idea.
Well, one thing we can do is if they agree to participate in a small business, a small business coaching program or what have you, we could always bump up the amount of the grant a little bit, or we could have a higher match rate.
That's
Pay for the
interesting.
coach.
Or there's different ways to structure it so that at least we incentivize that they participate.
But I also think this is something that would be good to give EDC to work on, because I think that it would be good for them to have that to do, but I also think that they would come up with a more in-depth plan. And it's good to give the boards and commissions things to work on that are in their specific area, because that way we're not trying to take everything. We can focus on other things and they can really bring us the win there, in my opinion. But I love the idea. I think it's great. So let's keep going with that with EDC.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, good on that?
I think so.
Okay, so you want to move on to the item C, the property update.
Yes, I don't have it on the screen. I just wanted to. Okay.
Just two bottom.
What's that?
Yeah. It's in the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did you want this screen?
Um,
I wasn't there. I thought it was.
you have it up on your screen. I was just gonna.
It's in the packet.
Okay. I'll start talking about it as I'm doing this, but what I wanted to do is basically just kind of familiarize you all, I'm sure, in varying degrees, you are, familiar with what properties the Urban Renewal Agency currently owns, but I just kind of wanted to go over them so that you're actually, if I click the agenda, actually,
Yeah, it'll actually take you right there.
it should take me right, boom, although I've got to do this. There we go. Okay. The Urban Renewal Agency, the properties that it currently owns are those that are circled in orange. So on Glencoe Road over here, of course, that's been called the Glencoe Opportunity Area. And it's actually 4 tax lots, and in total, it's barely over 5 acres, okay? It's the single largest commercial piece of property that is not developed in the city. And so it's pretty critical for, thank you if you got it. Thank you for trying if you didn't. So, yeah. So it's a pretty critical piece of property for the URA to own. It's kind of the big piece of property for the city to do anything with commercial development or try to facilitate that in the city. And then up on Commercial Street, right across from the library and library annex, kind of commonly called the Red House and the Yellow House. Those 2 properties together, the city owns. The Yellow House was the first purchased by the URA a number of years ago with the original intent of turning it into a coffee shop. But the reality of it taking a while for tax revenue to accumulate, it ended up just being storage. Most recently for the Friends of North Plains Library, and they're moving things out. So it's being vacated, but both houses have structural problems that make them unsafe for occupation, really. And so unlike the Glencoe Opportunity Area property, the big one that we're working forward, and we got the EPA Brownfield grant we've been selected for, and we're going through the final stages of getting the award. These 2 properties across from Old City Hall, across from the library and the library annex, we don't really have a formal plan for those 2 properties yet. We've explored the properties in the downtown improvement plan that was done, the ODOT TGM grant funded downtown plan that we did. And those 2 properties together have been explored, different scenarios, one of them being a new potential city hall with police station. And one of them is just kind of being private redevelopment of residential of some kind, maybe mixed use. But there's no action, but we haven't gone through a formal, like any kind of planning exercises to say, and decision-making process to say, okay, it's definitely going to be this, and we're going to plan on doing this, and here's our exit strategy. Council last year went through a discussion process to say if we build a new city hall, we prefer it to be on the north side, but there was no resolution. We're definitely doing it. It was just kind of left at study it, and when we figure out the money, let's hopefully build it there is sort of where it was left. I think with the update of the urban renewal plan, we're going to find that building a new city hall entirely with urban renewal money is going to be difficult to do. And so I don't know that holding that property to be a new city hall is necessarily what we want to do. I think we'll figure that out with urban renewal planning in the future. But I have a proposal coming in from the environmental services firm that did the hazardous materials testing and abatement of the structures on Glencoe Opportunity Area property. They have already done the hazardous materials testing for the Red House and the Yellow House. So I have them working on a proposal to do the abatement of that, remove all the hazardous materials from those 2 structures so that they can be removed, and we can do something different with the property. First, scraped and leveled and available for whatever, and then kind of plan on something to be built permanently there. So that's kind of where those 2 properties are.
Do we have any potential businesses that would be interested in those that we know of, or is it just kind of We're trying to get it ready in case.
I have a great question. I have a food cart operator, food cart pod operator, who does have a successful track record of running a food truck and starting up and running a food cart pod. He is working on a proposal. He came and took a look at the site, and he's working on a proposal to bring a few food trucks and some kind of market, farmer's market or something on that site. And I think I've mentioned a little bit about it before to you all. I can't remember if I have. I haven't gotten his proposal yet, but it would require that we go through the process of removing the old unsafe buildings. And so that would just be a project we'd have to move forward. We would need to move forward with that anyway.
Right.
It's so, but what I like about talking to him, and you know, it's for you all to think about, is it would be great to have kind of a short to medium term something happening until we know what it will be long term, and we figure out how to pay for what will be there long term, right?
Is there any concerns with competing with Richards Ridge? Is that gonna create more challenge? Let's be several.
That's a great question. I think, you know, I would want to talk to Kent and just kind of see what his thinking is for his property, but discussions prior with him were his food cart pod was really meant to be kind of like what we would be doing with this property if it were a food cart pod. And that is just something temporarily generating income until something permanent, until what the plan is for permanent materializes. So, would there be competition if they overlap in terms of time period? Yeah, but we'd be looking at it, we would be drawing people to downtown, so people would be driving by his property and potentially stopping. So there's some traffic that would be created. And we have a farmer's market, so that would be unique too. And then people who might not want what the food cart pods have across from the library, you know, might stop where he is. So it's you know, it's kind of one of those things where I think we have so little commercial traffic coming onto commercial from people outside the city, and then even new people who aren't even aware of all of that. Just getting them there is a good thing, I think. But you know, you all are the board for the property, so.
You mentioned a while ago that the owners for the house to the west of that property, we're talking about over there, across the library, wanted to sell the house to the city. And we all thought it was a good idea at the time to have a bigger chunk of land to work with. Could that be purchased by the URA with the current funds we have and use it as a larger swath of land to do something with, to give us some more options?
So, Commissioner Page, yes, there is money in the budget for more real estate acquisition, so that property could be purchased. I think that question though, I think what I would like to do is pose that to Elaine, because the White House that we're talking about is a well-maintained house. Like it's not a blighted, unsafe, like that would be an eminent domain kind of purchase. Now, we would use eminent domain, but we would be buying a perfectly okay single-family household structure and demolishing it. And so I would want to be sure we could indeed do that under urban renewal law.
Okay, so, and maybe this is a lame question, but now you mentioned that, that makes me think.
Yeah.
What would stop us from, if we did purchase that, just assuming the owner was good with it, rezoning that as commercial and something like what Newburgh or Forest Grove do, where they kind of have those houses that turn into businesses. It's kind of a quaint downtown. Again, it's not my area of expertise. I'm just throwing out an idea. So this is crazy. Okay. It's just a question.
I think it's a great question. I think from my understanding of how urban renewal money can be used, what you were thinking probably would be just fine because you're keeping the structure.
Okay.
And you know, you're not removing it for blight reasons, you're improving it. That property owner has told the city that if it was ever planning to do anything in the area, that they would consider selling it, yes, and we have budget to buy it. I think the other moving part here we haven't talked about, and the EDC we'll talk about it, has talked about it in the past, is we need to try to get some downtown property owners and businesses and other stakeholders to form a downtown association,
Yes.
because we don't have one. When we do, we can move up to the next level of membership in the Oregon Main Street program, which is run by the state of Oregon Parks Department. And there's a ton of money in state, and even they can help on pursuing federal money with OMS, to do historic home rehab or converting, that sort of thing. So there's a whole bunch of money that could be spent on that. That wouldn't be URA money spent on that. We would need to own the property. We would need to own the property in order to do that sort of thing.
I think that's something we should consider. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's at least something on the table that we should look into. I like the idea.
Agreed.
Okay, anything else on the property? Oh, so on the Glencoe opportunity area.
Mhm.
So we're gonna do the cleanup.
Mhm.
Do we know when we're gonna start, bringing the bulldozers and stuff to that? Briefly, I'm just curious, again, I'm just curious, trying to figure out where we're at.
That we don't know yet. So I have two different approaches I'm doing with the money. We haven't yet been able to get a meeting with Business Oregon, but we would like for their brownfield program. They probably will not grant us the money, just free money to bulldoze the buildings. But they probably can give us either a no or low interest loan to do it. And then on the back end of that, the lobbyist that we work with, he is going to work on a strategy to see about funding it through the legislative bill in the short session that will be coming. So kind of like a reimbursement, basically. The bottom line is that we now can say to Business Oregon, we will not get a grant out of them. That I know now. I bumped into one of them at the LOC conferences and talked a little bit about it, but grants for that sort of thing, they don't do anymore because so many places have brownfields issues like this. They don't grant the money for this and for demolition, that sort of thing anymore. But we could get a low or no interest loan to do it, pay for it, and then probably have higher success with the legislature because we were unlocking the EPA brownfield money by getting rid of the buildings. So that's how we're having to structure it. And we're working on a meeting with the state to come in and exactly how we do it.
Okay.
And in the meantime, let the police department or sheriffs or Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue have at it, have at the buildings.
Have at it, yes. Train, yes,
That'd be a good idea.
yes. We're more than happy
There's
to.
no unsafe materials in there before we turn cops and firemen loose in there, is there?
No, they're safe right now to
making sure.
bulldoze. I've told the story once before, I'll tell it again. The county SWAT team wanted to test new equipment that punctured holes in the building. And after we had all the hazardous materials taken out of one of the buildings they wanted to test stuff, they had to go in and hang new drywall because they just didn't have anything to puncture. So they spent some time and money on drywall.
Think of that cold tank, just run it over.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So we're more than happy to have that, and then people can, from a safe distance watch. That's all good.
Might be a good community event.
Yeah.
Alright, so in the last 5 minutes, we have update on Sisters this Fed.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Rowan and I met with Kathy Bishop, the sisters and stuff, and we went over all the detailed costs that they incurred improving the property. And where we were able to land, we kind of talked about different ways to approach it. But I think how we want to do this, because what they have done they've done a number of different things with that property. But if you remember what it was like when the previous tenant was in there that was in there with the previous owner, and it was fully the tenant that made the property of the condition that it was. but it was a massive eyesore. And that property, at the corner of 311th and Northwest Commercial, when you're coming into town off of Glencoe, when you're coming into downtown off of Glencoe, headed west on Commercial, or, or whether you stop at 11th and turn to go to Jesse Mae's for Garlic Festival or whatever else, the city had this terrible gateway with that property, just junk vehicles all over the place, the soil torn up, the building in really bad shape. And so what we talked to Kathy about is she has very detailed costs for everything that they did. And what we've landed on is, our recommendation, and we'll bring it to you either on the 17th or on December 1st. We'll come to you with a recommendation for a potential grant for them regarding the costs, the extraordinary costs they had just cleaning it up and what they did to make it an attractive gateway to downtown with the building. So that's kind of where we landed. And so we're working on documentation and a proposal, but we'll bring that to you either the next meeting or December 1st.
Any questions, comments? I'll just say I appreciate that. It'd be good to get that taken care of. Anything else before we adjourn?
I'll be meeting with the Rogue tomorrow afternoon. And they want to go over kind of what they're thinking about that building. And, speaking of new programs, but very quickly, they have one of the more prominent historic buildings on Commercial Street. We don't really have anything that targets the difficulties of having and taking care of and doing improvements on a historical building. And so I think that's probably what we're going to explore with them, because they do have some extraordinary costs. There's some deferred maintenance on the building itself, and a better cared for, more attractive historical building at the center of the downtown core is a very good thing for the district.
I love that. Comments, questions? Phil?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
And
Very much.
yes, thank you. That was great and very productive and on time. And with that, I will adjourn the URA board meeting at 6:57. At 7 for the regular council.
That's right.